So, dear participants, we would love to get to know you better. If you feel comfortable, please share in the chat your organization and the country you are joining us from. This will help us to understand the diverse perspectives represented in today's session. Thank you. So use the chat, don't be shy, and let us know where are you coming from. Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Austria, Slovakia, welcome. Serbia, Ukraine. We are really a lot of different countries. London, England, very nice. Italy, great. It's really nice to see so many countries presented in this webinar. You can keep writing in. But we will continue while we continue with the webinar. This webinar is actually a part of the MEET project. This is an Interreg Danube Region program project that is co-funded by the European Union. And the project aims to build capacities for young mental health promotion in formal and non-formal education and training. Can you please unmute yourself? Thank you. Training through the development of inclusive and innovative tools and materials. And this event is also part of the European Mental Health Week, which is a pan-European initiative to raise awareness about the importance of mental health and to reduce stigma, which takes place every year in May. And this year is this week from 13 till 19 of May. And the theme of this year's week is co-creation, that also our webinar will address in some points. We are thrilled to have you all here today as we delve into an important discussion about mental health challenges facing our youth, particularly in light of the persisting gender gap. As we navigate through these unprecedented times, it's crucial to address the growing concerns surrounding the mental well-being of young individuals in our societies. Throughout today's session, we'll hear from esteemed speakers who will share their expertise, insights, and highlight approaches, methods, and tools to strengthen the mental health and well-being of young people. If we take a look at our program, you can see that after this welcome and introduction session, our speakers will provide their inputs. Firstly, we'll hear from Austria about strengthening the psychosocial health of young people in Austria in line with their needs, gender-specific challenges, and approaches that they developed to address them. After that, from Serbia, we'll hear about gender gap and the potential of positive education in strengthening resilience and well-being of youth. And at the end, from EuroHealthNet, we'll hear about Eyes Hearts Europe. This is a mental health support for vulnerable youth through sports and mentorship, and how it was implemented, but also delivered in different countries. After we hear from our speakers what they have to say, there will be a lot of time to discuss, to ask questions, and also exchange of experience between the participants. But let us begin with a simple question. For that, we will use a Mentimeter. I hope that you are all acquainted with it. We would like to make this webinar a bit more interactive and engaging, not for you just to listen, but also to be active. And for the Mentimeter, you can use your mobile phones, you can use your computers. Just type menti.com and enter the code to join. The code you see on the screen, and when you enter, I think that are you all in? If somebody has any difficulties with that Mentimeter, just let us know. Give you a few seconds. And we'll start with the first question. Can you see the question? Yeah, okay. What are some protective factors to support resilience against mental health challenges in youth? What do you think is the correct answer? Yes, we can see the answers coming in. Maybe other answers are too silly. So you are all selecting the same one. Yeah, and obviously positive characteristics related to personal disposition, family, school, and their wider community is the correct answer to the first question. Then let's see what is the next question about. What do you think? Are good socioeconomic status? Is this a protective factor for resilience against mental health challenges in youth? Is this true or false? Yeah, there are more answers saying that this is true, and maybe there could be a discussion around it, but yeah, it is true in most cases. So let us proceed with the third question. Again, a true or false one. There are no gender-specific challenges associated with mental health problems. What is your opinion on that? We'll see about it a little bit later, but what do you think now? Yeah, this is more united answer. There are gender-specific challenges, and we will hear about them during our webinar today. And now, without further ado, let's dive into our discussion and explore ways to make a positive impact in the lives of young people everywhere. I'm delighted to introduce the first panel of speakers coming from Austrian National Public Health Institute, Gesundheit Österreich, that prepared this presentation. Not all of the ladies will be presenting it, but anyway, they were involved in the preparation. And here with us are Irina Vana, a sociologist working at the Competence Center for Future Health Promotion as a health expert and project manager. Also Silvia Geiswinkler, a sociologist working as a project manager and research assistant in the Department of Health, Society and Equal Opportunities. Sofia Zagetschnik, working as a health expert and project manager in the Psychosocial Health and Planning and System Development Department. And Michaela Pichler, a clinical and health psychologist working in the Psychosocial Health Department. So different departments from the Gesundheit Österreich represented in this presentation. They got their data together, and let's hear about gender-specific challenges and approaches to strengthen the psychosocial health of young people in Austria. Please, ladies, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I will share the presentation just to let you know. Just a second. Can you see the slides? Yes, I can only see you very small here.
It's okay, Irina.
Okay, great. So
it's working.
Perfect. Sorry, just to give you a very short introduction, we have three short inputs provided. The first one, which will be given by Silvia, is on gender-specific challenges. What does health mean for girls and young LGBTQ plus people? What might be specific challenges they are confronted with? The second one is presenting recent data from the Austrian Mental Health Surveillance, which is presented by Sophie, and the second one is giving one example on promoting positive mental health of young people, promising tools and measures, which I will shortly introduce. And I would now hand over to Silvia for the first short input. Silvia, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So what I will present is gender-specific challenges and what does health actually mean for girls and young LGBTIQ plus people. What I represent is based on a women's health report we did in 2022, and the first Austrian LGBTIQ plus health report where we did a survey on the health situation of LGBTIQ plus people. What I present is also very focused because of the young ages. So I do the results we have for young people. And yeah, Irina, please the next slide. Would you? But before I do the results, why do we need actually a focus on women or girls' health? And also, why do we need a LGBTIQ plus health report? So for the women and girls, we have this situation that there are around 51% of the population are women. But we saw in the health report that there is a really challenging data on women-specific or health-related issues for girls and for women, and also, of course, including the mental health impacts. For example, due to multiple stresses, negative body and self-images, and experiences of violence. What we also recognize is that there is historically a very androcentric view in the healthcare system and not really a lot of focus on women's issues. What is it about the LGBTIQ plus people? There are around 3 to 5% of the population who do not assign themselves to a binary or heterosexual norm. The report we did provides now information on the health situation, for example, experiences of discrimination and also, for example, transition processes. So what does it mean for young people and mental health? Next slide, please. This is a result based on the Women's Health Report. It is the focus on the body and self-image and self-esteem of girls. The result is there is the questioning of self-esteem is increasingly linked to looks, so not to substantial expertise, for example. It is very based on looks. Body self-image in general is a multidimensional psychological construct. And the issue is that it is always a rating of one's body and of one's body's parts. And what we see in a survey is that girls do have not similar self-image or self-esteem. For example, according to the BMI, that is obvious measurement. So girls have a poor personal image of their body, and it is poorer than boys have. What we also see, if you look here at the years, it is increasing distance between when they grow in their ages. So with 11 years, it is rather similar to boys, and then with 13 and 15 and 17 years, it really goes to a very distance. So there are external factors we really should look at, and girls are really much more confronted with them than boys. Next slide, please. The focus on the health status of young LGBTIQ plus people in Austria. We have here results for 15 to 19 years people, and also to 20 and 29 years people. They do their they estimate their health poor or very poor in a rather high percentage. So the 15 to 19 years people to 30%, the 20 to 29 years people to 11%. We have here the possibility to also do the look at the Austrian population average, where we see there is only 6% who estimate their health status poor or very poor, whereas it is at the LGBTQ plus people at 11%. What I have to say here is that we have here a corona effect, probably, but still it is, we see the percentage from the 15 to 19 years people is really very high, and should take more look at it. Next slide, please. We also did in the survey the question on experiences of discrimination of young LGBTIQ plus people, and there is a very high percentage of people who feel themselves discriminated. It is, I mean, if we do 3 categories together, it is around 85%, but at 15 to 19 years. But it is also very often discriminated is also still 35%. So we really had rather high, and we know discrimination is a very strong factor on health, and the health impact is really one issue to look at. Next slide, please. This is already the slide that goes to the next topic. What is the self-harming and suicidal behavior of young LGBTIQ plus people? And we saw, I mean, we had some categories we asked for. Did you ever, for example, intentionally hurt yourself without intending to die? I mean, I don't go through all, but what we see is also a rather high rate between 15 and 19 years. So for example, this one was, did you ever think of taking your life? No matter if you really wanted to, but did you think of, and there is a percentage at 83%, it's really high. Also here again, we have a corona effect probably, but still the percentage is extremely high. I mean, we have here the focus on the LGBTIQ plus people, but I guess it is also an indicator for in general vulnerable people, and discrimination experiences are probably not only for LGBTQ plus people a problem, but it is somehow a framing we can use to get an idea of how high is the impact. This is just a slide now. What did we have now on actions? There is sensitive to sensitivity work to welcoming diversity also in the healthcare system, information on coming out processes, and there starts a e-learning tool for awareness raising for of healthcare professionals for LGBT plus people in Austria. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. I will go on presenting some figures from the Austrian mental health surveillance systems, which can also give some hints about the mental health of young people and gender differences between them. Please, the next slide. Looking at patients up to 19 years of age who have received treatment for mental or behavioral disorders in recent years, it can be seen that the gender ratio has shifted in 2021 with a significant increase in the use of services by girls and young women. And this gender gap cannot be observed looking at patients older than 19 years. Here, the gender ratio has become even more balanced in recent years. So, next slide, please. There's also been an increase in involuntary placements in inpatient psychiatric care in recent years for minors, and this has also been mainly due to more placements of girls. And this increase in inpatient stays can also be reflected in some discharge diagnosis. And there you also see the gender gap. If you look at the left graph, you see the affective disorders, where you see that many more girls, and also regarding the eating disorders. And since 2021, girls and young women up to the age of 19 have also received more additional diagnosis of suicide attempts or deliberate self-harm during inpatient stays, while the figures for boys and young men have remained relatively stable. This is in line with the significant increase in calls to the Austrian Poisoning Information Center about deliberate self-poisoning by girls and young women. And these calls are still increasing, as you can see on the graph on the right side. Finally, I want to present some data from the Austrian Crisis Hotline for Children and Young People, called Rat auf Draht. And in the past, boys had used this hotline more than girls, but this was also due to so-called prank calls and test calls, where boys called the hotline in a group for fun, but this was also considered a way to getting to know the hotline. These calls have decreased significantly over the last few years. But, and that you can see on this graph, girls have always used the hotline more for content-related advice, as more than boys. And looking at, I need the next slide, please. And looking at consultations concerning mental illness or mental health problems, you can see that they have increased in recent years for both girls and boys. The most common topics in this group are suicidality and self-harm. And in general, more girls than boys seek help for these topics. But interestingly, and unlike other data sources like the data from the inpatient sector, Aniti, the slide again, please.
Sorry, I'm kind of lost with the two filters here. I have no idea how to go back. But if you can help me, guiding me, I will try to do so. Just a second. Here you are. Sorry.
Thank you, Irina. So because it's quite interesting thing that you can see that the consultations on suicidality, that the number of consultations with boys has been increasing since 2021, even whilst the number of consultations with girls on this topic has been decreasing again since 2022. So, and on the other hand, you see that consultations on self-harm are still increasing both for girls and for boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. So I'll try to go on with, we have seen by the data that Sophia just presented and also by the data that has been already presented and the questions that have been raised by Sylvia, that young people in general and girls to an alertingly high extent face mental health challenges nowadays. In Austria, therefore, for example, representatives of young people, I can think of one initiative which is called Change for the Youth, and also the Youth Referendum on Mental Health, have demanded for easier accessible professional health support. The hotline which was just presented, or the data of the hotline which was just presented by Sophia, is one example that could help here. Another one, which was recently installed in Austria, is so-called Project Gesund aus der Krise, Healthy Out of Crisis, which is providing free of charge therapy places. And we know that these structures are very important and that building them is the basis for getting those in need into a better state. And also there, of course, we need gender-specific focus and expertise, as Sylvia has pointed out, that needs might be very different also that need to be addressed. Yet for strengthening mental health of young people, we need to support them in building their resources and cognitive, psychological, and emotional skills in the first place. So before they become, they have the need for professional support. This is where health promotion starts and where I want to put the focus on. So I want to present one recent initiative which aims at promoting positive mental health by bundling quality information on existing programs and using synergies between the actors and organizations that are active in the field, promoting mental health, thereby aiming also at building ground for a broad outreach to all young people and also their carers or caregivers, as well as other professionals. This is the so-called Act Belong Commit initiative, which is, as I said, currently implemented aiming at young people in Austria. And we thereby orientate ourselves on international good practice examples, which have been already implemented also in other countries, such as, for example, Finland, Denmark, or Australia, where it first started. So in Austria, the initiative was launched in 2023, so more specific in October. And by now, we have reached 150 organizations who joined in. And this is one aspect of how the initiative is built up. So it is building on a so-called social franchise concept, which is integrating on one hand the joint engagement and initiative of all different people active in the field. So really health providers, schools, and also youth organizations, for example. And the other aspect that holds the initiative, the so-called Act, Belong, Commit campaign, are three simple action and resource-oriented core messages, which I'll also shortly provide, and which aim at giving advice on how to sustain mental health, how to keep mentally healthy, and also how to help people in finding information and how they can keep themselves mentally healthy. So we mainly orientate on the carers of young people, but of course we also try to reach out to young people themselves with the help of the organizations who joined the initiative. So we target young people and, as I said, their relatives, aiming at their engagement in activities that fosters their own mental health of young people and the relatives, of course, because if you have relatives that are not mentally healthy or carers that are not mentally healthy, that would be very difficult to build a mentally healthy surrounding for children. We target, as I said, organizations and try to bundle high quality information, material and offers on a platform, which I will shortly present afterwards. And as I said, the three main messages that we use orientate on aspects of positive psychology. It is on one hand the message ACT, which relates to do something, and should remind people to stay mentally, socially, spiritually, and physically active by doing things they like, which helps them also keeping happy. Belong is the second one, pointing to the importance of good relationships, which is in Australia also used in the terms of do something with someone. And the third one is commit, to do something meaningful, to do things that provide meaning and a good purpose in life. I also added here the information on the so-called Wohlfühlpool. This is the online platform where all the different informations can be found. What I would like to focus on, because of course these kind of campaigns, and we have often been confronted with the question, well, if there are so many people in need, why do you do campaigns? Why don't you use the money to invest in different things? First of all, campaigns or this initiative has the positive impact because it's a social franchise sensibilization campaign that is not too costly. So everybody can join in and everybody can use this campaign also to make things visible which already exist. And in Austria, we have the situation that there are quite a lot of different organizations who are already very active in the fields, who have very good ideas on how to support young children and also teens and young people. But it is so diverse that it is kind of hard to find where to find the information. What I tried to focus on, building on the international evaluation studies, is what the effects of these simple core messages are on one hand, and what the effects of the campaign and partnership can be. So, of course, we know that there is very low evidence or nearly no evidence that people who already have to deal with mental health issues profit from campaigns like the ABC. However, the campaign proved to be effective in promoting a general well-being, reducing mental distress on a population level, and supporting awareness raising and destigmatization. And this is what we try also to reach with this first basic attempt. So we see in international comparable situations positive effects on self-competences and the promotion of happiness, the reduction of loneliness and risk of depression, promotion of brain development, especially in young age, because people keep mentally active, fostering social cohesion, trust, and solidarity in general, and the sense of coherence, social capital, and the ability to actively cope with challenges are also positively affected by the main core messages that are addressed by the initiative. And in this way, it is the implementation of campaigns that are similar to the one we tried to set up in Austria, show a positive relation to resilience. And on the very practical level, of course, we also have the positive effect that we have a low threshold access to quality information and material, not only for the young people, but especially for their carers also and teachers. And we see a reduction of stigma of mental distress. And I wanted to point out to 3 of the tools that you can also find on the Wohlfühlbuch, which I just presented, which also deal especially with the situation of girls or boys. There is on one hand the project Selbstwert Plus, which is, for example, also taking up questions of as we heard before, the positive self-image, how to deal with the body image girls have, but also many different other health-related questions that are important for girls, also providing them with a low threshold access and providing them also with safe spaces. Then we have, you can find these only in German. Also on the website, we have information on the variety of different ways of how to be a young man, which is called Burschenleben-Vielfalt, which is also important to focus on this variety to see how to deal with the stereotypes of gender roles, which might impact also the mental health of both girls and boys and everything which is in between. And this is, for example, also addressed by the booklet Body Revolution, which can also be found on the Wohlfühlbuch. So this is just some examples which might help to also bring the focus from a very generally addressed initiative for positive health and positive mental health on the need for specific help that can, and specific information for young girls and women who, as we have seen, are really in need to have a specific focus also when it comes to mental health. And I will stop sharing now. Or Mattia, can you stop sharing, please?
Okay, it's fine, thank you. I could override you, but yeah, it's good. Well, thank you very much for this very interesting insight into the situation in Austria. And some of the programs, tools that you already developed and others could use in their cases. But let us now hear from Mirjana Beara-Benjak. And she is an associate professor at the Faculty of Philology and Arts and at the Joint Study Program in Psychology at the University of Kragujevac, Serbia. And she will speak about gender gap and the positive education in strengthening resilience and well-being of youth. Please.
Thank you, Mattia. Hello, everybody. I'm also affiliated with, apart from my academic affiliation, I'm also very active in non-governmental organizations, especially in the Know-How Center, which is a partner in this project. And also, together with some colleagues, I established the Institute for Positive Psychology in Novi Sad, and I will present some of the initiatives that we provided these years in protecting of mental health and of young people. So I will just quickly try to sum up some of the gender gaps and in mental health, but in not that specific details as we heard from our Austrian colleagues, just in order to give some ideas how to proceed with the potentials of positive education for enhancing mental health, resilience, and well-being, which are very important factors of mental health. So, as we heard from our Austrian presenters, there is a gender gap in mental health, which can be summarized as that more common in women are internalizing mental health issues like depression, anxiety, eating problems, or predisposing factors for eating disorders in adolescence and adulthood. And more common in men or boys are externalizing mental health issues, which can be recognized as larger prevalence of suicide, which is like successful suicides, not just trying, but also to be more successful in that, substance use and antisocial behaviors. So what do you think, what is the reason for these gender gaps? We don't have time enough to make a discussion. I would love to discuss about that, but maybe you can think about it for our last half an hour where we can discuss. And a specific issue is mental health of non-binary persons, as our Austrian colleagues said. There are some specific issues, but we in Serbia still don't have enough quantitative data. And the research on non-binary and homosexual or LGBT population is just emerging in recent years. But there are some, of course, there are some findings that there is an inequality with regard to mental health and quality of life between non-binary and binary transgender people and the cisgender population that needs to be addressed. But also the current research shows that many of that issues in mental health are stemming from social norms. And this is what we also heard from our Austrian presenters. What I did one research with a colleague, but it was in 2016. Wanted to see what is the state and perspectives of primary prevention or other forms of prevention for mental health of youth. And we discovered that increase of stress and lack of protective factors, for example, awareness of own strengths or low resilience or low self-efficacy, could be partially responsible for growing issues in mental health of youth, but also for some gender gaps. And I will just give you one theory which can be provide as a promising ally for psychosocial programs in mental health promotion. So one of the possible reasons why men are more prone, for example, to externalizing mental health problems is precarious manhood beliefs, which is explained in so-called precarious manhood theory, or you can find it somewhere in fragile masculinity theory. Those are beliefs that manhood or masculinity is some sort of achieved social status that must be earned and constantly defended because it can be lost or taken away. And what do boys and men choose how to defend it by aggressive or risk behaviors that demonstrate toughness and courage. And this belief is pervasive in varying degrees across cultures. And comparable beliefs about womanhood status are rare, but we can discuss that there are some beliefs about the appearance of self-image, body image in women or girls that are more prevalent in some cultures. So as we heard from our Austrians, so we should think how to adapt our preventative programs to genders, to specific issues or specific reasons why there are gender gaps. Okay, so what the research showed is that country level beliefs about gender are correlated with health behaviors and outcomes, and especially with life expectancy of men, showing that in the cultures where those beliefs are very strong about that the manhood is precarious or fragile, the men in those cultures live 6 years shorter than men in cultures where those beliefs are not that strong. So another thing that I would put in focus is gender gap in using psychosocial services. Research and experience shows that women are more open and active to seek for counseling and psychotherapy. And I also would like to share my observation about your data, Irina and the team, that always more women recorded in as inpatient or seeking help, and etc. And I would ask whether this is the indicator of that women are in grave like not that are they there because they have more problems, or they just choose to ask for help more often than boys and men. And I would say, I would put my money on that latter assumption, that men and boys are less prone to ask for help. Also, maybe because of that PMT, precarious manhood theory. In some research that we conducted in Novi Sad in Serbia, we found that young female service users were very prevalent, between 78 and 86%. But I'm sure that doesn't mean that young boys don't have any problems. So we should think why this happens, why that happens, that gap, but also how to increase accessibility and attractivity of mental health services to young male with mental health issues. Some of the ideas with what we came out with was to try to diversify psychosocial education for different groups of potential users. For example, to introduce mental health through sports. And I'm very happy to hear from our Finnish presenter about that attempt in their country. Also to maybe try to do some education in those topics that are of more interest for male, like sexual initiation or relationship, of prevention of risky sexual behavior, or cyber resilience, internet use, mental health issues, gambling, betting, which are more prevalent in boys, etc. Maybe some programs should be focused on learning how to be masculine without aggression or risk behaviors, like maybe assertiveness training adapted especially for boys and men. And one of the promising alleys, I think, positive education as a primary preventive approach for enhancing resilience. And that this is not only for male, but for wider audience, as we can say. So this is the final slides of my presentation, what could be the potential of positive education in strength, resilience, and well-being of youth. Just to remind ourselves what is psychological resilience. This is a positive psychological adaptation in the face of change, which is nurtured, developed, and mobilized in times of stress. And resilience and well-being are positively associated. They go together hand in hand, but well-being is a wider concept. And according to APA dictionary, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. So it looks like the building of that strength or that resilience is a promising way how to prevent mental health issues. So as Matej asked us through Mentimeter in the beginning, there are 3 groups of protective factors for resilience in youth. So these are personal disposition characteristics like developed cognitive ability, social ability, positive response to others, self-confidence, self-efficacy, internal locus of control, autonomy, hope, optimism, and internalized values and character strengths. Also, there are some characteristics of the family, which can be also a protective factor for resilience. Close relationship with at least one family member, existence of structure, clear and realistic expectations, a feeling of warmth, cohesion, good socioeconomic status, and connection with extended family, but also some characteristics of the school and the wider community. And there is a place, or there is the area where we can do something. Yeah. Also, for example, a good school or teachers who are advocating for the child or young person, and who is sensitized for the issues in mental health for boys and girls. Also, connection with social organizations in the community, as we are all coming from some social organizations. We know how important that can be for young people. And also healthy beliefs and values in community culture, as we saw from that theory of precarious manhood. So how to support resilience and well-being in youth? There are 2 approaches. One is to fix what's wrong, to deal with these challenges and issues in mental health, but also to do something to teach young people what makes life good, valuable, and meaningful. And this is the approach that we choose in positive education, or in Institute for Positive Psychology. So what is positive education? This is one approach which focus on the well-being along with educational achievements. For example, how to discover and use character strengths, how to develop vision for your future, how to enhance your motivation, internal motivation, how to develop your values and meaning. Through that, you can enable young people to develop and flourish. But I just want to add that positive education does not mean that all other education is negative or that current schools are bad. Just we can make more of that focus of the well-being than now. So what are character strengths, for example, which promise to be a very good way how to promote resilience? So character strengths can be used to improve or better manage what's wrong, such as stresses and other difficulties. Also, when we are able to use our typical basic strengths, our depression decreases. Also, when we use strengths, our sense of life satisfaction and well-being increases. So this could lead us to the conclusion that building character strengths is of great importance for building resilience. These are typical character strengths, or this is one model of strengths, which is from VIA Institute on Character, and we use this model in our projects. So there are 6 virtues and 24 strengths. I would not go through each of them, but you can just see for yourself, and you can go to the website of the VIA Institute on Character to do the questionnaire in order to discover what are your basic strengths, what rank will you have in those 24 strengths. And top 5 strengths are your character strengths, which are the strengths that you can rely on in difficult times, in stressful situations, etc. And just for the end of my presentation, how we used those strengths in our model of positive education. We called the project the Curious and Flourishing Schools, Positive Education, Building of Character, Strengths and Virtues. It was supported by Erasmus Plus program, and 6 schools, 2 from Serbia, 2 from Croatia, and 2 from Slovenia are participating in this project. And this is our model, which we developed through the cooperation with those schools, with teachers from those schools. And we also, I would just add that we also promote teachers' well-being, not only students' well-being, but we think that without teachers' well-being, it is more difficult to promote well-being of students. And we are dealing with those concepts from positive psychology and from other models of positive education in order to develop resilience and well-being in youth. These are references and sources that you can consult further if you are interested in that. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mirjana, for your most interesting input. And you can, if you have some questions in your head already, please write them down, and you will at the end have the opportunity to ask those questions and get some answers, of course. And now finally, joining us is Mr. Hannes Jarke, a psychologist and public health professional, coordinating the mental health portfolio at Euronet HealthNet. He will present the program Ice Hearts, which is mental health support for vulnerable youth through sports and mentorship, and also its adaptation to the needs in different countries. Please, Hannes, floor is yours.
Thank you. Just a second, I'll start the slides. Is everything all right? Can you see the slides? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, yes, thank you. Thank you also. Thank you for the invitation and the wonderful presentation preceding. As just was said, my name is Hannes. I work for EuroHealthNet. We're the European Partnership for Health, Equity and Wellbeing. We have our office here in Brussels, sorry, with about 20 people working here, and we represent research institutions and public health bodies all over Europe, one of them being our colleagues from Gesundheit Österreich. Today I'll talk to you about one of the projects that we're involved in that's called Ice Hearts Europe, that is a very specific way of increasing and boosting the mental health of children from an early age on. Just as a general overview, so Ice Hearts is a 4 million EU for Health Action grant, which means you can see below there where all this money goes to. A rather small chunk of it is ours because our work is more related to identifying strengths and weaknesses and how things can be implemented, whereas obviously a large chunk needs to go to the institutions and the partners who are implementing it in their countries. And the idea of Ice Hearts Europe is really, it aims to address the intersections of physical activity, of mental and physical health through community sports. And the goal of this project is to use the Finnish Ice Hearts approach in different countries. So there are 2 topics that I want to talk to you about today. One is, first, I will introduce to you the Ice Hearts approach from Finland, where it comes from, how it works, what is specific about it, And secondly, and I hope this will be useful for many of you, we will talk about how we looked at different countries and how we considered what is important for such a project to work in different contexts, in different countries, in different areas, what sort of politics need to be considered, and how it can really be have a similar impact as it has in Finland. The ICEART's approach now, like I said, it's an evidence-based and successful practice from Finland. They started implementing it there 30 years ago. It is very special, and I come to this in just a second, in that it provides really consistent long-term holistic support for vulnerable children. So it's not just, well, I don't want to say just, but it's not a summer camp that happens once, or a therapy where a kid goes to for an hour or two a week, but it really is, it is fully embedded in their lives. And the idea is to use team sports as a tool for engaging children with social work. So those who require special support will be selected by the schools together with the ICEART's team and ICEART's mentors, which is by now a fixed organization working together closely with schools and with local authorities, municipalities. And what they do is they select a mentor for children at schools, who really works with them at school, after school, and at their homes for a full of 12 years. So the program, as it is in Finland, really starts when children go into school, then they get the mentor, and then usually they stick with them until they graduate from what is, sort of high school, the equivalent of high school. And this is the basis for what we want to adapt in different countries. But to take you maybe a bit more through the journey, because I feel obviously every time interventions are introduced, there are a lot of buzzwords flying around. So I really want to make sure you also see the journey that happens there. So as I mentioned, already during late preschool, and then when school starts, children who need support are being identified to being part of an ICEART sports team. So the mentors who lead one of those sports teams, they are introduced as their sports coach or as their ice hockey coach. This is where the name comes from. Who brings the kids together. They're usually about 10 to 12 kids who have psychosocial or emotional problems. And they start playing ice hockey together as a team. Now, the sport here obviously is an advantage, because we know sport has a positive impact on mental health, but it's not a silver bullet. It's a nice thing to support. Obviously, for some specific mental disorders or mental health problems, sport can really be an extreme strong conductor. But in this case, it is really just what brings them together and what brings them into a team. So the mentor has then the opportunity to see the kids interact with each other, so they can create friendships, they can create their own small community, their small group where they can belong, where they have other children to talk to and interact with. And the mentor has really a good overview to see how they behave in those groups. The mentor can intervene if there are any outbursts or any tricky things. And the mentor is also going sometimes with them to school. So mentors sometimes even sit in classes to see how are the kids behaving, where can they intervene. And in fact, they also work very closely together with the parents of the children as well. So this goes in Finland sometimes as far as that they visit children from their home. They support the parents in, for example, if the parents need to work and the kids need to go to a dentist or another doctor's appointment, they will take them. It really is sort of a bit of a professional family member in a sense. And the mentors are very much invested. As I said, they're working with them until they graduate from high school. We had the opportunity when we were working on the project to visit Helsinki, to visit one of the schools and one of the sports teams there. They're also very good at the sports. Just to say, we played field hockey with them. They completely obliterated the whole research team that played against them. We just completely lost against them. But we've seen these schools, and it is very interesting to see how those mentors have access to the school, so they're known to all of the teachers, they're known to all of the other students, and they really have a full involvement in their lives. Yeah, so it is a very, very special, very, very specific thing. One thing that I might want to mention as well, because it was a question that came up from the consortium as well, was that, well, if you put kids in a sort of a special group, won't that make them a bit of outsiders? Won't other children will they look down on them? Will it have a negative impact in that sense? But the answer was that it's actually the opposite, and that there are children who are actually jealous of what the icehearts kids tell them from their teams and how they work with their mentor, and they actually are keen to do it themselves. So this is the very special icehearts approach from Finland, and in icehearts Europe, the plan is to adapt this system to other countries. Now, one thing that you will probably immediately notice is that, or if you're familiar with EU-funded projects, is they have a certain amount of time. We have 3 years to implement this. As you might, as it's very obvious, we cannot implement a 12-year program in a 3-year period. So we had to adapt things, and we're working with these countries, so with Spain, Italy, Slovenia, Denmark, and Estonia. They have different amounts of implementation sites. Italy, I believe, has the most. They really have different implementation sites from the north to the south. And a lot of the work that we as EuroHealthNet are doing is really concerned with how can we make sure this works in other countries, or how does it have to look differently in different countries. So what we did is a situation analysis and needs assessment, sometimes shortened as SANA. Yeah, those of you who have worked in European projects know we love to make abbreviations. So this situation analysis and needs assessment was done together with our partners in Finland, THL, to really create a questionnaire for implementation partners that they could use as a guidance. So we're not telling them what to do, but really questions as a guidance to think about. And the feedback that we've gotten was that it was extremely helpful, because it when you start these things, there are things that you just forget. So really having a structured approach to this, and this will look different for other mental health interventions and mental health prevention programs, I'm sure. But having a structured approach beforehand can be extremely helpful in this. So I think this is essentially what I was just talking about. So really the idea is to make specific gaps visible. What are the policies that are different from where it was originally implemented? What sort of services are available? What sort of data is available? Because obviously, even though icehearts is a great program, no matter where you will go, there will be other programs in place who might have an overlap with the program that you want to implement. And also the availability of data is different. In some countries, in some areas, you might know how many children you might be able to target, or you know how many gyms there are, you know how many schools there are who would be open to it. But in others, maybe you don't. So the idea of such a situation analysis needs assessment is really to figure out what is there, what can be used, and what are barriers and facilitators for the program. We identified some common issues. So firstly, we found that poverty and socioeconomic deprivation was quite high in those areas. That was not super surprising, because the areas that we are targeting were selected because of those reasons. Same for unemployment rate and lower educational levels. We also found data that showed there's a higher prevalence of mental health problems in these areas, and different problems in families. We also found that several social schemes are available across all of the countries to tackle the issues, like economic safety nets, housing support, access to quality food. But we also saw that those look very differently depending on country to country, or even area to area. So this is one of the key insights, which will probably not surprise you. The icehearts program, which is based on working in ice hockey teams. Yes, we did not find ice hockey teams in Italy and Spain that we were able to work with. Also, our partners, specifically in Spain, Futbol Más, as the name suggests, work predominantly with football. So all of these sort of things had to be adapted, but jokes aside, with the things that can be learned from this is that the process has to differ. An intervention that works in one country might work in a different country in a very different way, even though it keeps the key elements of it. So there's no holistic approach possible as it is in the Finnish ICEARTS model. So some of our partners center more on the sports part of it. Some focus more on the social inclusion. Different types of sports are needed. Access to schools is actually rarely possible. What we have seen personally in Finland is not doable in Italy, for example, at all. And our partners in Italy, the ISS, have actually told us that depending on the region, if you go from north to south, schools do completely different things, areas do completely different things, the policies differ vastly. So for every different region, or even sometimes every different school, they need to take other approaches, and they need to talk specifically to headmasters and to personnel there. So one really big key learning is that you really have to involve everybody, the social ministries, the social affairs people, social workers, teachers, everybody who is involved in these things needs to be, or everybody who should be involved also really needs to be involved. The legal situation for hiring the mentors differs vastly between countries as well. So the requirements are different. You can probably also guess because social work sometimes is regulated differently. Some countries have vocational training and then have social workers. Others have to have diplomas, bachelor degrees, whatever. So this really differs. And yeah, like I said, the close collaboration between all of the stakeholders is really important. If you're interested in this, the report is online and freely available. You can also, for example, just skim through one country and see what they're doing. We also collected annexes where really in 2 or 3 pages, we have summarized the key insights per country. So if you're thinking of adapting a mental health intervention or a prevention program from one country to another, I think this can be a really helpful resource, and then you can obviously adapt to whatever your needs are. I could talk about this for much longer, but I think my time is pretty much up right now. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you've gained some insights from the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hannes. And you mentioned Slovenia. I'm wondering what sport is the program focusing in Slovenia?
They will, as far as I know, they're focusing on different sports. Football is one, so they're mixing team sports and single sports. They're currently in the phase where they're implementing it, so they're recruiting the mentors, and also based on their qualifications, they will choose the final sports, the final types of sports.
Okay, because I could imagine then that hockey, yes, we have it, but probably football is more popular, or basketball. Thank you very much for this interesting case. And now it's discussion, questions, and exchange of experiences. Time slot for all of you to enter.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Michaela Bruckmeier and I am from the Center for Social Innovation Austria. And I really want to thank our speakers for the fantastic presentations, and also thank you for Mateja for organizing such a fantastic session. I see we already have some hands raised, which is great. Just before I start calling on people, I think we have a total of 15 minutes left in our session today. So we'll have, let's go for perhaps 8 minutes of discussion, just to have that we then have a bit of a presentation about the project that made the webinar today possible, and a bit of time for wrap up. However, should your question not be called upon today, I believe our speakers would perhaps be happy to put their contact info in the chat, and maybe would be happy to engage in further conversation after today. Well, so let's start. Irina, do you want to come in and kick us off?
I think Sybil was the first to raise her hand, but I will just pick up two questions or one aspect that was striking to me. So the first one to Mariana. Mariana, you were pointing out that the differences between men and women might be related mainly to the form of how they search for help. And I think it is helpful to have a more in-depth insight, because we also have some recent data which is on self-reported health and mental health. And also there we see the gender differences, for example, for young people, so between 16 and 25. Of course, it's not the very young ones in this case, but we also see there that it is mainly girls who really report that they have or report more mental stress. So it might be both, but I think it's still important to really have a focus also on the specific challenges of girls and women and non-binary people. And the second aspect, Hannes, we were talking about that before, but I was wondering, because team sports is very much related to what boys do, and sports is especially important also for boys to get engaged in. So how is the gender deviation within the program, and are there different experiences that you could report from the different countries, because they have different sports there? Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. Do colleagues want to respond? I don't know who wants to start. I think there was a question for Hannes in there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can respond. So we don't have the data yet from the countries where we're going to implement, because this is just starting. It will very much depend on the gender of the mentors. So the way it was implemented in ISARS, the first team was an all-boys team led by a male mentor, and the way they're working on it is that the female mentor trains female students, whereas the male mentors train male students. So I don't know how many female and how many male teams there are. I think as far as we've seen from it, because there are more male trainers, as far as I've met, I think there are more male teams, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it's definitely open for both genders. And I'm aware that also there are discussions now, obviously, to see how to include non-binary students, which, you know, as the program starts at the age of 6, is a bit hard to identify. So I know there are discussions ongoing within the ISARS organization, but I don't know what the conclusions are, or whether there are any conclusions on that already.
Thanks so much, Hannes. And also a reminder, if you want to post any questions into the chat, I can also pick them up there. But in the meantime, Sylvia, would you like to ask something or make a comment?
Yes, thank you. I would follow the question of Irina, and this question to Hannes. Hello. My question also is from the gender side to the project. So what I thought of was, so anyway, how are the teams? Are there boys teams or are there girls teams? This is the one question. And one thing we also, I guess, only because it is open for also women, girls, or also for non-binary people, it doesn't mean that they attend the camp or the group. So there has to be activity, I guess, to really explicit include them. And special programs, I guess. And the other thing was, so how is the gender diversity in the mentor groups? Also, how are they women and men, or how does they look? And the other thing was, are they somehow educated or in gender sensitivity? These are my questions.
Yes, very good question, very complicated questions, especially the latter one that has been debated in the consortium a lot. So yeah, in terms of gender distribution, like I said, I believe there are more boys teams than there are girls teams in Finland, but I'm really not 100% sure. I would have to talk to our colleagues in Finland about this. How this will look, like I said, in the specific countries will really depend on the genders of the mentors that will be recruited. For now, we're following the guidance that is in place, and that there are male teams trained by male mentors and female teams trained by female mentors. As I said, this might change in the future, but there are no decisions on that so far. And then yeah, so the qualifications of the mentors is a really interesting topic, because so IceHearts in Finland, as it started, was not started by professional psychologists or social workers or a group of people, but really by a few people who thought it would be a good approach to things. And then it developed and it became more professional, and then psychologists gave insights and social workers gave insights and municipalities gave insights, and it turned into the program that it is now. So it really pretty much developed organically. When we spoke to the mentors in Finland, they had very different backgrounds. Some of them are social workers, some of them are not. As far as we've understood from the original program, was that they really make the decision based on the person, and they do get some training, yes, once they're accepted. In terms of how it will be done in the other countries, this is really extremely tricky, because like I said, different countries have different minimum standards. Where, for example, in Italy, they when we did the SANA, we got this very long list of qualifications that a person would have to have. And I think it was a full page of qualifications that we looked at, and we said, well, but also the way it will be implemented will, with them working part-time and only for a limited amount of time, is this actually feasible? So there is no, since it's also such a well, yeah, flexible position in a way, but also not very linear position. It will differ from country to country, and we cannot fully say yet what exactly will be. There are minimum standards, obviously. You know, there's they should not have been to prison before. Those are very, very basic things, and you should have a qualification in either social work or psychology, or worked with kids in another way. But the further training, it's not formalized yet. So this is obviously a very interesting topic to look into, and hopefully something that we can explore with further funding in the future at some point.
Great. Thanks so much, Hannes, for funding these questions about the really, really interesting intervention. I don't see any other hands up and no other questions in the chat. And I think normally I would try to continue the conversation given just how important this topic is. However, it does lead us right back onto schedule. So I'm going to take advantage of there being no more hands up. And I will briefly talk about the MEET project, which is an Interreg-funded project that also focuses on developing tools and other channels and options to better support mental health in young people. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Okay, so I hope you can see that. So the MEET project stands for Mental Wellbeing and Education for Disadvantaged Youth. As mentioned, it is funded by Interreg. The project lasts for about 30 months, started in January and will go until June 2026. We are proud that it includes 15 partner organizations across 11 countries. And because I think, as we saw in some of the presentations today, it is incredibly important that you have lots of inputs and a lot of collaboration in order to really effectively develop tools that support young people and their mental health challenges. So we're really proud to have all these partners on board. I think in terms of the context, just because of time, I might skip over, given that we've spoken about it. But The objective of MEET is to contribute to build capacities for youth mental health promotion in formal and non-formal education and training through development of inclusive, innovative tools and materials for educators, social workers, as well as youth at risk themselves across the various partner countries. In terms of the impact we're hoping to achieve, through this project, we're hoping to combat mental health problems among young people, especially amongst the most vulnerable groups, reduce poor school performance and drop-off rates, as well as reducing the number of needs, and to better enable an educated workforce and contribute to reduced labor shortages. We have 3 key objectives, which includes building capacities of stakeholders in partner countries, building inclusive tools, and also, of course, a very important one, achieving policy development and uptake to make sure that policymakers understand the importance of this topic and understand the importance of developing concrete actions to tackle it. Then I think one more thing that I want to draw your attention to over the next, I think more than 2 years we have left on the project. We'll have lots more opportunities to collaborate. So we'll have 4 more webinars like the one today. We will also have some co-development of some joint strategies and action plans, and we'll also have some co-creation workshops to help build what's called the Danube strategy for youth mental health and education. And for these and more events, we would really, really appreciate if you could join us for these as well. And now I will hand back to Matea to help wrap us up.
Thank you, Michaela. Yes, before we conclude, we kindly ask you to take a moment to fill out our brief evaluation questionnaire. The link to the questionnaire will be shared in the chat, but you can also scan the QR code on the screen. And we thank you in advance for your participation. If you just open it and you can fulfill it after the webinar. And as we would also like to stay connected with you and keep you informed about our project updates, future events, and so on. If you are interested in receiving further information and invitations to our events, please feel free to indicate your consent in the chat box. You just need to type yes, so that we know that you are interested to get more information. Also, a PowerPoint presentation for today's webinar and invitations for the next ones. And as the last task or question for today, I am inviting you to the Mentimeter again with a question for the task to share one word that summarizes your key takeaway or main insight from today's session. Just give you a minute. So experience, insights, network. Yes, I think we had a lot of that. And we will have it more even during our next webinars. Knowledge, yes. Also for me, it was very informational and interesting inputs from our speakers. 12 years team, yes. This is a very long period that somebody is engaged, so it's really, wow. Positive education, masculinity, yeah. Thank you for your responses, and they keep coming, but it's 2.5. We need to conclude our webinar in order to respect the time that we said that we will commit to that. So we've reached to the end of our webinar, and we thank you to all our esteemed speakers and also to all participants for your valuable insights and engaging discussions. We really hope that you found today's session informative and inspiring, and that you have something to take away with you. And yes, please remember to fill out the evaluation questionnaire, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you and take care.